Hello, my name is TK Chianini, and I'm the Chief Technology Officer for the Security Business Group at Cisco. Thank you for inviting me this year to speak at JuiceIT Digital 2021. My talk this year is on security analytics, and at a very fundamental level, I actually want to talk about the telemetry architecture required for you to run the many security analytics platforms that you need to defend against threat actors these days. So thank you, and let's get on to the talk. Telemetry architecture, the future of security analytics. The agenda is fairly simple and straightforward. We'll do an introduction of the problem. I want to explain it in technical terms, but also make sure you understand the business ramifications. We'll go and enumerate some of the requirements, technical requirements, but also, again, putting it in context to what kind of analytical outcome the business needs for security purposes. And then, of course, we'll conclude. So first, the problem. Gartner said it best when they said that information is the oil of the 21st century and analytics, the combustion engine. It gives us a model to look at the problem holistically. Telemetry is where things begin, but honestly, what we're looking for is an analytical outcome that serves the business. So while things begin very technically with telemetry and the data that represents change, really we need to stay focused on the analytics and the outcomes that help automate and augment our staff. I want to look at the big picture here because, like I said, looking at this holistically, we can see that telemetry feeds analytics and analytics delivers outcomes. So starting at the top, when we look at an outcome is actually something that is useful or not useful to a specific persona. You may be a threat hunter, you may be investigating an incident, you may be working audit and compliance, but you need tools, analytical platforms to deliver to you an outcome. Analytical outcomes are held accountable to what are called competency questions. So an example of that would be you may be working in the security operational center and you may want to know what Alice has been doing on the network for the past 30 days, or are there threat actors in my retail branch? There is a set of questions that you want to answer on a daily, weekly, monthly basis that the analytics need to deliver on. So again, it's not whether the analytics is right or wrong, it's actually whether it's useful or not useful to a particular persona. The analytical outcomes provide us scope, and it's very necessary to have scope in these days of big data. So while all telemetry is data, not all data is telemetry. Telemetry is what represents change. Changes in the application, changes in the devices, changes in the user. All of this data that represents change, you can perform behavioral analytics on these data sets. And that's where we've seen a big rise in the use of machine learning and AI. So again, it's not that you have to have all the data. You need to have the data necessary and sufficient to then provide these outcomes that are important to your business. I know this diagram looks complex, and it really is. The sad part is that your environment might be even more complex than this. At the bottom, you have what are telemetry exporters. And again, you can see devices, servers, switches, routers. Nowadays, because of cloud native services in Azure, in GCP, and in AWS, we also have telemetry being exported from cloud services that are going to be important to your business. So again, on the bottom, you have these senders, sources of telemetry, and on the top, you have a growing number of consumers or destinations for these telemetry sources. And now, if you look at this, you can see that we have network management, we have security, we have some generic data lakes. Maybe they're being used for other parts in the business that are delivering analytics. I'm sure every week you get a call from some fancy SaaS service on the internet, and they deliver an analytical outcome that is attractive. You may want to run it as a business, but then they tell you, oh, all you need to do is send me your telemetry from all of your, from your enterprise. Easier said than done. And this is the problem. If you don't solve this sort of routing problem of telemetry and this architecture, I want to call it an infrastructure. If you don't solve this infrastructure for telemetry, then you have an impediment to how many analytical platforms you can run to serve your business. And frankly, this is the business problem, which is there are great advancements in data science and great analytical outcomes for your business to use. You just need a telemetry architecture that enables you to use these, to try them. Maybe you just want to try it from Monday, and on Friday, you don't like it, you turn it off. When you have a telemetry architecture, it allows your business this type of agility. I want to describe one by one a set of problems that you may have already faced in connecting telemetry to a bunch of analytical platforms. The first is with legacy exporters of telemetry. Now, again, very technical, but some of these older things like printers and maybe some IoT devices, they have very legacy protocols, and they can only send to one or two, maybe, destinations. This is a problem because you should have it available to any analytical platform that can deliver an outcome that's valuable to your business. So this is the first problem, which is that legacy exporters can only send to one or two consumers. The other one is an impedance mismatch, where you have legacy exporters sending to modern consumers. An example of that is a protocol called syslog, which is legacy, and the newer version of it is syslog NG. The newer modern consumers want to receive syslog NG, but the legacy exporters can only send syslog. The opposite is also true, where you have modern exporters wanting to send to legacy consumers. And again, you can see this impedance mismatch. An example of that is AWS VPC flow logs wanting to send to something that wants to consume IPFix, which is, again, a legacy type of consumer. We all know that you have multiple senders and multiple destinations for telemetry. And the problem gets even more complicated because of not only do we have things on-prem, but we have things in the cloud. This omni-cloud topology requires you to think about a solution that is distributed. And now with all distributed systems that scale, you need it to be centrally managed. Let me just land the plane here and say that a telemetry architecture should address all of these problems above and deliver an infrastructure meeting the needs of all of the telemetry sources or telemetry exporters and the needs of the telemetry destinations, which are the analytical platforms important to your business. Let's talk about the requirements for a telemetry architecture, because maybe you've already started on one, and this will be a lens by which you can assess where you are in terms of everyone else trying to achieve this same goal. This is a very protocol-centric view, I admit, but I think it illustrates that on the left, you have the sources of telemetry, and on the far right, you have the destinations of telemetry. And again, you may recognize some of these names. These are the analytical platforms important to your business. In the middle, you have what is the infrastructure that make up a telemetry architecture. It brokers, it transforms, it filters, it performs features on the telemetry stream that help you connect all of the sources important to these analytical platforms and make sure that the analytical platforms have what is necessary and sufficient to do their job. Let me just go through an example here quickly of what a system would look like. Again, centrally managed, so you would log into a web browser, and once authenticated, you'd be presented with a central view of all of your telemetry architecture. Now, on the right, we see a topology that represents the modern day topology. You have several amount of branches, you have maybe 1 or 2 data centers, and then you have a set of cloud services, maybe running in AWS, Azure, or Google. The idea of a distributed architecture is where you would have distribution nodes closest to these telemetry exporters, these sources of telemetry. So maybe you have a few of these up in the cloud, you have some in the branches, some in the data center. But again, you want to make sure that these distribution nodes are reachable, highly reachable by these things that are generating telemetry. And then what you must do is make sure that the telemetry being generated reaches the analytical platforms that need them. So you declare a bunch of consumers of these telemetry sources, maybe some from Cisco, some from IBM. I'm sure you have a multi-vendor list, and then you then declare in the central management how and what they receive. So for instance, it may be that you want VPC flow logs to reach Azure. You may want a generic WebSocket over an encrypted channel to go to a particular data lake. It may be that you want to forward the syslog, which is a protocol of telemetry, to Splunk. And again, this is all being centrally managed and forwarded. You're essentially routing the telemetry of all of your devices, of your infrastructure, to the analytical platforms that need it most. Here's one of the anti-patterns that we see going on. It may be that it's not that you don't have a telemetry architecture. It may be that you have too many. So in this case, let's say that you had 4 teams all working on separate things in the business and in separate silos. So let's call it Platform A, Platform B, Platform C, and Platform D. And let's say the enterprise-wide has 7 protocols, A through G. Well, if you did nothing, the people working on Platform A would have to write adapters for those 7 protocols. And so would B, and frankly, so would C, and so would D. And so you can see that all of these people are working in silos and they're not sharing work. And if you had a telemetry architecture, what you would be able to do is send it all to the infrastructure, the telemetry architecture, and what would happen is it could be transformed into the protocol that the platform would prefer. And so you would just transform it for A, transform it for B, transform it for C, and transform it for D. And this is what I'm talking about when I talk about leveraging an architecture. An analogy here is, if I had a suite of applications, it makes no sense that all of those applications write their own spell checker. Okay, you introduce more bugs, you don't have any type of amplification of labor, and again, it's just the wrong thing to do. So you want something horizontal. You want an architecture for your telemetry so that you have the agility to provision and deprovision analytical platforms that are important to your business, and in this case, important to security. Cisco has a solution called the Cisco Telemetry Broker. And here are a few of the deployment scenarios. When you look all the way to the right, what you'll see is a very simple scenario where you have the infrastructure sending to the distribution nodes and that being forwarded to a tool, okay, an analytical platform. Now, your systems are arguably more complex than that. You may have a system that looks more like something on the left, where there are multiple destinations for this infrastructure. But I just wanted to give you a solid example of what an architecture would look like when deployed enterprise-wide. So with all that said, I want to conclude with a few things. Again, looking at a telemetry architecture through the lens of requirements, we see that a telemetry architecture must deliver visibility. You must see everywhere in your business where there is change happening in applications, in network behavior. This is all very important in these days because we're automating so much. We're going from human scale to machine scale in many of our processes. And so again, we have expanded visibility through all the protocols important to analytics. We can tailor the telemetry and send the expensive telemetry to the expensive storage and the cheap telemetry to the cheap storage. We can route, we can filter, we can manipulate these things so that they meet the needs of the business. Again, centrally managed so that we can scale, not only machine-wise, but administratively. And lastly, we want to make sure that the telemetry architecture is programmable, because it's not only going to be humans interacting with this. A lot of machines are going to be leveraging the API for automation. If you'd like to research this more, we have a product page for the Cisco Telemetry Broker. I've written a few blog posts introducing the Cisco Telemetry Broker. And lastly, I wrote a piece on what it is to have a telemetry architecture that serves your business. So the next steps, if you'd like what you heard, please join me today at 12:20 p.m. to see a demonstration of the Cisco Telemetry Broker in action. You can also visit Cisco at the JuiceIT Digital Showcase anytime today or tomorrow. So thank you very much for your attention and good luck.
Hello, my name is Richard Dornhart, and I'm the National Security Practice Manager at Data3, and I'm really excited to be following up TK's presentation today. One of the areas that we focus on as a practice is helping our customers gain visibility required to derive actionable intelligence that can be used to proactively secure your environments. And in the beginning of TK's presentation, he spoke about the big picture, where he said telemetry feeds analytics and analytics derives outcomes. Now, this really resonated with me, and I hope it did with you too, as telemetry is one of the key, if not the key ingredient, when it comes to gaining the appropriate visibility into your environment so you can protect against cyber threats and orchestrate your response. Today, it's not uncommon for multiple solutions, or as TK referred to them as telemetry consumers, to require the same telemetry. This can lead to complex configurations on each solution to accommodate this. And in many cases, it's not possible to make that happen at all. As you heard in TK's presentation, the Cisco Telemetry Broker provides you with the ability not only to broker your telemetry to multiple different sources, but also to pre-filter that information and transform it, allowing you to gain control over what information is sent to what location and how. Now, Cisco is also innovating in an area of visibility and orchestration with the introduction of Cisco SecureX, which can take a feed from the Cisco Telemetry Broker. And you may be asking yourselves, so what does SecureX have to do with telemetry? Well, that's a great question. Cisco SecureX is a cloud-native tool that connects to the entire Cisco Secure platform. There's a ton of functionality that Cisco SecureX can provide your organization. In fact, too much for me to cover in the few minutes I have with you today. However, I want to touch on a few key areas of SecureX. First, visibility with context. SecureX provides a unified visibility with customizable dashboards that allows you to maintain context around security incidents in your environment. Second is threat response, which is extremely important these days. And SecureX allows you to accelerate threat investigations with incident management by aggregating all of the information from all the different sources and correlating that against their global intelligence networks and giving you a local contextual view. Third is orchestration. And this allows you to automate your response with pre-built workflows that align to common use cases. Or you can build your own workflows with little or no code required. And finally, integration. SecureX doesn't just work with Cisco solutions, but it also works with a number of third-party solutions also. I've seen our customers get real value from SecureX, and we want to make sure you do too. So as part of JuiceIT, we're offering free SecureX activations for up to 30 customers. We'll work with you to activate up to 3 security solutions on the SecureX platform from Cisco. This includes a workshop, a technical discovery session, and the activations of the solutions that I just mentioned. So please reach out to your Data3 account manager to take advantage of this offer. But I also want to add that we're also offering a 90-day free trial of Cisco's Telemetry Broker. So we'd love for you to take advantage of that too. So thank you and enjoy the rest of JuiceIT.